great Estesani grandsons. Many people say your teachings and the teachings of Abraham are alike. However, I seem to find many differences. For example, they say that whatever you think and feel is what you attract. However, you say the beliefs are what generate thoughts and feelings, and therefore create a reality, one level above thought. When I used to listen to them, I was so obsessed and focused, monitoring 24/7 what I was thinking, all the time. And if a negative thought came to my mind, I was like, cancel, freaking out. However, you taught us that not only can we observe them neutrally, here and there, when they come, but that we have to, in order to face our fears and transform them and integrate them. You cannot transform what you do not own, as you say. And also, I was driving one day on a highway while listening to them, and I had a car crash. Nothing happened to me, thankfully. It was just the side of my car. But I was like, this shouldn't have happened while I'm listening to them, supposedly vibrating this high. So I wanted some clarity on those teachings. What's your true perspective about them? Thank you.
Different teachers have different ways of reaching different people with the translation of the words that come into your reality. There are people that gravitate to certain ways, certain semantics, certain words that are used to give them at least some understanding of the process. Other teachers may supply other aspects of it to give a different understanding, or at least an understanding of a different part of the process. Taken all together, you have a complete picture. But that doesn't necessarily mean that an absolutely complete picture or the same delivery will come through every single being that is a source of information. That's why it's so important for you in your evolution, as you change, as you grow, to pick the pieces out of any source of information that work for you and leave the rest behind. It may simply mean that you're now at a different place in your life where you need to hear things and do things in a different way. And therefore you gravitate to maybe one teacher one time and another teacher or another source another time, because you are piecing together from different sources what works for you to create the path of least resistance for who you truly prefer to be. So it's not so much the idea that there's any contradiction. You're simply looking at things from different points of view, using different ways and methods that appeal to different people who have different belief systems and need to hear things and receive things in different ways at different times. Now, with respect to the idea of your car crash, there can be many different levels on which you can look at this. Number one, on a very simplistic level, you can say that you may have created for yourself an experience that on the most simplistic, basic physical level simply says, pay attention to what's going on when you're doing something physically, because you can get hurt if you're not paying attention. So on the simplest level, the most basic physical level, you could simply say it's a lesson of don't be distracted when you're doing something like driving a car. Otherwise, this is what happens or can happen. That's a very simplistic lesson on a very basic physical level. On other levels, you could say, all right, you were in a state of being where you realized that by being in that state of being, that no matter what happened around you, no matter how dangerous it seemed, you would emerge unscathed. And therefore, being on that level, in some sense, allowed you to experience a different reality than what you allowed the car to experience, proving to you that physical reality, in some sense, can be circumvented. And so that could be part of the lesson as well. So there can be many levels to this idea, but it is not always wise to assume that just because you believe you're on a certain level, that certain physical things can't happen. Because again, please remember, the basic concept is it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that shows what level you're on, what vibrational state you're in. So the idea is not that a car crash shouldn't have happened because I was on a high vibrational state. That's an insistence and assumption that doesn't necessarily serve the purpose of the experience, because it just demonstrated to you that just about anything can happen no matter what level you're on, because it's not about the idea of what happens, it's about the idea of what you do with what happens that really makes the difference in your experience of physical reality. So all these different things can come into play. It can be one or more or all of them. And it's up to you to determine what other lessons you can learn from having had that experience. But be open to the idea of not being insistent on what you think should or shouldn't be a reflection of the state you're in. Because again, that really shouldn't matter.
Good day, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you so much for this co-creation. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It is our passion and our pleasure to speak with all of you as well.
I was surprised in your monologue. It's so playful.
Yes.
The suggestion, and also, you acknowledge that some people might be afraid to go in that way, but this playful way of approaching it, that must help us loosen. That must help us.
That's the idea. Yes.
And I also, when I was a child, was very terrified of. I don't know why. I had an inexplicable fear of,
yes,
alien contact.
Well, that's because as children, when many of these contacts actually start happening in your lives, you have never been taught that such a thing is actually going on in your reality, and therefore you haven't been given the tools in order to handle it, and so you feel that when you are shifted to the different realities that are representative of these different beings you're interacting with, you feel out of control. Your physical mind doesn't understand what's going on because it doesn't have the tools to deal with it. And therefore, you feel out of control, and even to the point of going into survival mode, because the physical personality feels that when being shifted from the typical reality you're used to a different frequency of reality, it feels like you are being annihilated, that you're dying, and so you go into panic mode. So the idea of what we deliver to all of you are the tools necessary to incorporate within your understanding of how reality works, how these encounters are occurring, and give you the ability to calm yourselves and realize that from a higher level you made a choice to participate in this, whether you remember it or not, and thus you can operate within it more consciously, with more awareness, on your own terms, and experience something quite fascinating and joyful and creative and constructive as you remember more and more your willingness to participate in the evolution of the Earth toward becoming the sixth hybrid race.
But when you say the evolution of the Earth,
yes,
you're also you're kind of describing our, because we're in our own reality, right? Each of us is in our own reality.
Yes, but you have a shared, agreed upon experience that you call your reality timeline.
Right. Got it. And so, now I'm really excited for this to take place. I can't believe, I'm so excited that it's even possible in my lifetime, potentially.
Yes, it is.
And my physical mind looks out there at the world and things it thinks it's noticing, and thinks to itself, oh my God, we have to go so far between now and 2023 to be really prepared to have a
first of all, don't gauge that by everything you see. Remember that you are capable still of looking at people making choices that represent other realities other than the one you're actually in. Just because you can see them doesn't mean you're in the same reality.
Yeah, the glass wall effect.
Exactly. So don't necessarily include everyone that you see having to be at that point. It is sufficient that those that are ready at that point to begin to experience the first stages of open contact will be at a point where they're prepared to do so.
Okay. So is there a way to discern if something I'm seeing is actually relevant for me to kind of address, or it's just something behind the glass wall? I guess my highest excitement will take care of that.
Following the formula will allow you better and clearer discernment about what is relevant for you and what is not, yes. Of course, everything in a sense that you see is relevant. It just might be relevant in a different way. So in other words, it can be even as simple as seeing something you would say is not really relevant for your path doesn't mean that it's not relevant for you to use in the way that works for you. For example, seeing someone making choices that you don't prefer can add greater clarity to the choices that you do prefer. So even though the things they're choosing aren't directly relevant for you, the fact that you're capable of seeing someone choosing something you don't prefer is relevant because it provides greater background and clarity for you about what it is, by contrast, that you do prefer. So that's how to use what isn't relevant directly in an indirect way that is relevant for you.
And I guess also, if I see someone making a choice and it kind of triggers me emotionally, like maybe fear comes up, yes, and that's also an opportunity to look at what beliefs.
Absolutely, and therefore relevant for you on that context as well.
Got it. And when I'm doing that, I try to look at my beliefs, go through the emotions to find the beliefs is kind of the way it seems to work for me.
Yes.
And but sometimes there are certain beliefs that just keep reappearing. And I know that you've mentioned that sometimes there can be belief systems and
yes,
other beliefs reinforce the other ones, but certain beliefs like I'm wrong, or I shouldn't exist. I know those don't make physical sense because it's arguing with life, as you've eloquently put it, but somehow they stay sticky. And I'm just wondering if there's anything else you can help us with. Or
well, all right. Well, again, the idea being that you may need to investigate more deeply what it is you're getting out of holding on to those things. Because that's the only reason they would keep reoccurring, is there must be a belief that says there is some advantage to this, some advantage to remembering this or recreating this idea. Now, it can be as simple as you saying, well, I do have a belief that if I don't keep reminding myself, I might forget and then fall into a regimen that I don't prefer. So in that sense, you might be using it for a positive reminder to keep you on track. Now, if you continue to believe you need that reminder, then it will constantly be there reminding you to always be aware that you could choose to go this way, but because of the fact that it keeps cropping up, you will never go that way. You don't have to keep doing it that way, but that may be one reason why you would keep repeating an awareness of something you don't prefer, because you might be using it as a guidance system to make sure you actually never choose that direction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think so.
So I'm not saying that is the reason. I'm simply saying that could be one of the reasons. It's up to you to investigate based on what I just told you about the idea that there must be something you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
That you believe serves you. Whether it actually does or not isn't the issue. There must be something you believe you're getting out of it that serves you. And the more you investigate it from that perspective, the sooner you will understand why you might keep repeating that cycle.
I'm trying to ask my question that question now. And actually what comes is this belief that it's keeping me small so I'm not seen.
Oh, all right. And why don't you want to be seen? What are you afraid will happen if you are seen? Which is another question to always ask. What are you afraid will happen if you become who you prefer to be? So what's the answer to that one?
It feels dangerous, like someone's going to come get me.
Dangerous. Oh, someone's going to come and get you. Yes. How melodramatic.
I know, it's true.
Now, this is simply the result of a misunderstanding of how frequencies work. Remember, if you actually are in the frequency of your true self, your passion, there cannot be, by definition, anything dangerous in that. If you suddenly feel that something dangerous might happen if you act on your passion, that's not a vibration of your passion. You're already out of the vibration of your passion to even think and entertain that something like that could happen.
I see. So the belief, the resistant belief has already kicked in.
Yes, because you are conflating and contradicting the idea of the definition of passion with a contradictory vibration of something dangerous happening to you, which, if you understand the pure definition of your true self, knows that that's not possible. You can only experience even the idea of the fear of something happening if you've already left the vibration of your true self, which shows you still have a belief that says it's better and safer for you to leave that vibration. Because you would know, just through the idea of understanding the physics of it, that you cannot experience what you're not the frequency of. So if you are the frequency of your true self and passion, then how can you experience anything that is actually truly dangerous to you? Why would you attract it?
Yeah, It makes a lot of sense.
And again, at the same time, remember, that doesn't mean you won't see things that might symbolize the idea of what could be dangerous. But again, it doesn't matter what you see. It only matters what you do with what you see that makes the difference. And if you stay in your vibration of passion, you will always respond to what you're seeing, even if it's what you don't prefer, in a way that allows you to use it in a way you do prefer and get a benefit from it. So remember, being in the state of passion, your true self, doesn't mean you can no longer see things that are not representative of what you prefer. It simply means that you will respond to them differently, even if they still exist and are still perceivable in your reality. That's the measure of change. Many people on your planet confuse the idea that, oh, well, I'm on a different vibratory level. I should never be seeing these things again. That's not true. As you expand your consciousness, you don't become less aware of the negative. You become more aware of the negative, but you become less likely to choose it as your experiential reality. So the idea is, it doesn't really matter to a truly centered being what happens. It only matters to them what they do with what happens, because that's what makes the difference in their experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
I know. That's why I said it.
Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting that the more we expand, actually, the more aware we become of negative choices.
Well, of course, because the idea of positive and negative and the center point permeates all of existence. Therefore, as you expand your awareness of more and more and more of existence beyond the physical, you're going to learn about more of the positive and more of the negative, as well as the center point in the trinity of neutrality and balance between the two.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you